But don't we have to worry about melanoma if sunlight is a source of vitamin D? That is the big one. And let me tell you, there's a whole lot of difference between getting a melanoma and getting a common skin cancer like a squamous cell carcinoma. They're totally different cancers. One is an irritation. The other one can kill you quite rapidly, the melanoma, if you don't get it taken care of in a hurry. And that's where the dermatologist comes in, because you should all be assessed occasionally to make sure that if you have something on your body that is not a melanoma. So in all but type 1 skin, regular non-burning sunlight exposure does not correlate to increased risk of melanoma. Who here has a type 1 skin? You know what it is? Okay, red hair, non-tanner. Lots of moles, something like that. You know, it'd be close to being a type 1 skin. So, okay, let's see the type 1s out there. Any type 1s? I'll be darned, not a whole lot of you out there. I see one back there, but she's smiling and not raising her hand. So anyway, you have to be very, very careful. I generally tell people, and this is Marc Sorenson's opinion, check with your MD, but I tell people who have that type of skin, I would still, on a sunny day, go out and sit under an umbrella where you get the shade. You'll get all of the vitamin D production you need just getting reflected light from objects around you. Your type of skin, what's great about it is you produce vitamin D so rapidly compared to other types of skins. So in a way, you've got a little advantage there. Darker the skin gets, the longer the sun it takes to produce your vitamin D. Okay. Now, this is something that I haven't seen done by anyone else. This is my original, well, not my original research, it's my original writing on research that I uncovered. I wanted to see, with all of these statements that sunlight was creating melanoma, I wanted to see if that is indeed the truth and present a few facts on that. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that indoor occupations grew from 1/4 to 3/4 of total employment between 1910 and 2000, U.S. statistics. During the same period, the outdoor occupation of farming declined from 33% to 1.2% of total employment. That's a 96% reduction in people out in the sun doing farming. In addition, further information from the Environmental Protection Agency determined that as 1986, about 5% of the adult men in the USA worked mostly outdoors, and about 10% worked outside part of the time. They also mentioned that as far as women were concerned, it was less than that. So we have a problem worldwide now. Areas now that should be where it's really sunny and people should have high vitamin D levels don't have it anymore. Florida in the United States, we're getting a lot of vitamin D deficiency. Georgia, rickets is rearing its ugly head again now in Georgia and Arizona and different places because people are frightened to death out of the sun. And it's a shame that that is happening. All right, so based on what I just told you, if melanoma is epidemic and rising faster than any other cancer, which is what the Melanoma International Foundation states, that melanoma has arrived at that dubious distinction during a time when sunlight exposure has profoundly decreased. We see here the red bar dropping down there. We have 1/5 or a -5 in terms of the sunlight exposure that we get now compared to what we did near the first of the century. In that time, melanoma has increased by 3,000%. Now, if you take that thing at first glance, does it make sense then that melanoma is being caused by sunlight? That is just plain stupid. I don't know what else to call it. That is just plain stupid to make a statement like that. But that's what they say. And you know what? They keep seeing it. They keep seeing the people who take care of themselves with much sunscreen and so forth, protecting their skins and so forth. And every year that they do that, what happens? Melanoma rates go up and up and up. And we're now finding recent studies showed that people who use sunscreens regularly have about 36% greater risk of getting a melanoma compared to people who don't use it at all. So don't you just believe what they put in the women's magazines when they're catering to people who pay them $1 million a copy to print that garbage in there. Okay, melanoma increase versus sunlight decrease. We're taking a look, basically the same statistics I just gave you, except on a little bit different type of graph that I produced here. Dropping since 1935, that was the Melanoma International Foundation baseline year for that 3,000% increase. We take a look at that, a 50% to 10% drop in sunlight exposure, and then we also see it going from, for every 2 cases in 1935, there goes to 60 cases now. There's your 30%. So you see, it's a direct opposite relationship. If you're going to have something that causes something else, you at least have to have a parallel relationship, don't you? There is no such relationship. All right, now, when we talk about people really waking up to some things, here we have weekend sunlight exposure correlating to a reduced risk of melanoma. Dr. Newton's study, sunlight exposure, less than 4 hours on the weekend, we have what we call an average level, a 1 we call it there. If you're getting more than 4 to 5 hours a week just on the weekends, look at what happens. You drop your risk to 0.72, or a 28% drop in the risk of getting a melanoma. If you go greater than 5 hours, look at what happens. You're down to a 1/3 reduced risk of getting a melanoma, according to this research. And the research is all over the board, but when you take a look at this type of study, you find that every one of them is telling you that if you're getting out in the sunlight regularly that is, not going and frying yourself in Cabo San Lucas for 3 days and then coming back to Edmonton, not getting it. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a regular sunlight exposure, working in it, playing in it, and so forth. Now, how about this? From the American Academy of Dermatology, they did a study which shows us the relative risk of melanoma based on serum levels of vitamin D. How they ever even dared to print this with their colleagues around them, I don't know. We're talking about, as we go up there, just a tremendous increase in the risk of melanoma, a 5 times increase among those who get the least sunlight, and have the least level of vitamin D compared to those who are on the opposite end of the spectrum. Okay. Now, Dr. Gandini study. Dr. Gandini, her study showed that a large number of moles increased risk of melanoma by 589%. That's a risk factor. It didn't matter whether you're out in the sun or whether you're not in the sun. If you have a lot of moles, you have a greater risk of coming up with a melanoma. That's just the way it is. However, as a little aside, because I also lecture on nutrition, we know that melanoma and common skin cancers are both reduced rather dramatically among those people who don't drink alcohol, among those people who eat lots of colorful fruits and green vegetables. Stuff down those fruits and vegetables, folks, because the antioxidants you get from them are protective against not only melanoma but all cancers. It's simply a good habit to have. All right. Now, again, part of the good news, because what you see here, I'll let you read the top of that, but as far as the particular people making this statement, the British Association of Dermatologists, isn't this interesting? And then at let's see, we've got Cancer Research UK, Diabetes UK, Multiple Sclerosis, National Heart Forum, National Osteoporosis Society, Primary Care Dermatology Society. So 2 of those are dermatology societies. And look what they have said. The UK is really coming to the forefront on this right now. Here's the statement. Okay, sun exposure is the main source of vitamin D, but excessive sun exposure is the main cause of skin cancer. No, that's absolutely wrong. But that's what they said, so I'm giving you the whole story of what they said. The fastest rising type of cancer in the UK. Enjoying the sun safely while taking care not to burn can help to provide the benefits of vitamin D without unduly raising the risk of skin cancer. It's essential for good bone health, and for most people, sunlight is the most important source of vitamin D. The time required to make sufficient vitamin D varies according to a number of environmental, physical, and personal factors, but is typically short and less than the amount of time needed for skin to redden and burn. Think that over. When you go out in the sun and you want to know how long to stay, you get the slightest bit pink, you're out of there. You're out of it immediately, because that means that blood is coming to the skin. It doesn't mean that you're damaged yet. And once you get a tan, that's the best thing that you can do to prevent the melanoma. It's the best way you can do it. That's your own SPF, right? And it doesn't have to be a very high SPF. We don't want a high SPF. We learned that from sunscreen studies. Okay. Regularly going outside for a matter of minutes around the middle of the day without sunscreen should be enough. When it comes to sun exposure, little and often is the best. The more skin that is exposed, the greater the chance of making sufficient vitamin D before burning. People should get to know their own skin, and that's true. You need to know what type of skin you are. So, let me say this again. If I can go out in my backyard in St. George, Utah, naked at noon, because I have a very modest place to do that. I'm not a nudist or anything like that. But if I can go out there and lie in that sunlight and I expose all my body, all I have to do is stay there 10, 20 minutes, produce 20,000 international units of vitamin D, light-skinned, blue-eyed Caucasian as I am, 10 to 20,000 units, according to how tanned I am. That's a lot of vitamin D. And you know what? I can cover every inch of me the rest of the time. I'd never cover a sunscreen, but I can cover every inch the rest of the day because I've exposed a lot of skin. Now, again, I mentioned this earlier, but if all I'm exposing is my face and hands and arms, like they say that's all that we need, then what happens? I have to stay out all day long. And there's the one place that I could damage my skin, right? Because I'm staying so long to get enough vitamin D to get up to the levels that Carol was talking about. Okay, the benefits of obtaining vitamin D from sunlight exposure. Here they are. Produces large quantities of vitamin D in a short time. We just said that. There is no chance of vitamin D toxicity. The skin always self-regulates production. You cannot become toxic because your skin will cut you off at a certain production level. Mood is dramatically elevated in the sunlight, and you know it. I would guarantee that you know that here at Edmonton. When the sun comes out and there's glory after you've had a long winter and you walk out, how do you feel? Immediately. You don't have to wait, do you? It's immediate. And you know what else happens? Your blood pressure immediately goes down. Within minutes, your blood pressure drops when that happens. There's so many things that sunlight will do. We don't even know them all yet. Sunlight's free. Undoubtedly, they will slap a tax on it soon, but so far, it's free, right? Sunlight boosts mood, keeps circadian rhythm in check, and helps us sleep soundly so we can rejuvenate and rehabilitate the body. When you're exposed to sunlight, you make not only vitamin D, but also 5 and up to 10 additional photo products that you would never get from dietary sources or from a supplement. The last two statements there come from Dr. Hollick's wonderful book. And I'd suggest that you all read that. He's one of the great, great men in all research in vitamin D. Okay, have you seen the last chapter in the evolution of men? Are you experiencing it? Are you experiencing right now the last chapter in the evolution of men? Man? Okay, you're going to find out right now. You can tell me, are you? I'm glad I got out in the sun because too much of the time I'm the guy sitting on the computer there, hunched over. There were never cavemen until today. That's my opinion. We never had cavemen. We have them today. We live in our little caves all the time. Even in St. George, Utah, we live in those air-conditioned cars and so forth. My book, if you'd like if you're interested in that, purchased on Amazon.com, Vitamin D3 and Solar Power for Optimal Health. This has been a presentation of the Sunlight Institute. Folks, let's get out and let's enjoy the sun when you have the chance. Thank you very much. Great question. Yes. That's why I always use that naked at noon thing. They have told us never to get out in the sunlight except before 10 and after 2. That's the worst piece of advice we could ever get. Because in this morning, we have the sun being filtered. The UVB light that produces vitamin D is all filtered out. It's too close, comes through too much atmosphere, so the UV is not there. The same thing that you're getting in Canada in the winter when the sun sits so deep in the southern sky that all of the UV is filtered out. So the best time to get it is between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. If you're on daylight savings time, that becomes 11 to 3. That is the best time to get it. And that way you get a lot of it, and then you can cover yourself up if you want. And you're okay, great. One more question, yes? Yes, well, I think there's no doubt that the ozone layer is thin in certain areas for a little while, but I'll tell you another piece of research that came out of Norway, Dr. Mohn. They looked at over several years period where there'd been a 400% increase in the rate of melanoma. And in their particular area, there had been absolutely no increase in the thinness of the ozone layer. And remember that if the ozone layer was a problem in creating melanoma, which is what I'm talking about, then we would, we'd have real problems with. And the fact is that we don't. As sunlight exposure has increased or decreased, and the melanoma has gone up. And if it were true, as I said a minute ago, that the problem was sunlight, then we would expect most of the cancers to be on areas of the body that are exposed to sunlight. They're not. They're on areas of the body that are not exposed to sunlight. So I don't think that the ozone layer argument holds water. Thank you very much.